Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to see you here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to be getting started here. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So if you can please just sort of raise your hand for me to let me know that. Very good. We're just doing just a check here now before we get started. This is a Facebook Live broadcast, just so that you will know that, as well as a Zoom Live. So some of you will be seen on camera and some of you will not. But I want to welcome our audiences, whether you're seen or not seen. And as we go through the session today, we will be adding more people onto the screen, just so that you will know that that's coming. Let me start out with just a little bit of housekeeping here for you. We will ask that everybody's microphones are muted until we ask for you to unmute them. We usually like you to control that yourself. If we have any problems with that, then I'll have to take control of the muting, just so that we can make sure that we're okay with our sounds. The chat room is open, as well as the Q&A room. We ask that if you have questions or comments or whatever, if you please put them either in the chat or the Q&A. Either way, we'll pick those up and we will be able to direct those to Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley. There will be an opportunity in the middle of this where you will have an opportunity to speak directly to her without us playing intercessor between you and the chat room. And so we encourage you to be prepared for that as well. We like this to be a very interactive kind of session. So even though she'll be talking to you a lot, there will be ample opportunity for you to also talk back as well. So I wanted to make sure that you know that. So I want to say welcome to you. Other people will be joining us in and out as we go. And I realize that a lot of our registrants are from different parts of the country. Many of them are snowbound, as we here in California are in the sunny kinds of weather right now, but I am mindful of that as well. So having said that, let me see if I can go ahead and have Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley to please just sort of show yourself here. If you can please come into our room here for just a minute. There you are. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, we're gonna get started here, and I'm gonna go ahead and switch over here to the speaker view for just 1 minute so I can tell you just a little bit about who we are and why we're here today. Okay. African Global Organization has been around now actually since the year 2000. We've been doing Villager Awards, however, only since the year 2014. And I noticed that we have another one of our former Villager Award recipients who is on the screen now, Barbara Knapper, Barbara, if you can just do a little wave there for them, who also was a recipient in 2014. 2014 was the very first year that we actually did that. So we call that our inaugural year. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley and her husband were also 2014 Villager Award recipients. So what we're doing this year is that we're trying to do two things. Number one, we have a number of people who are new recipients of Villager Awards, and we for sure have given them more time than anybody because we wanted them to be known. Nobody knew who they were. And then we also have people who have received awards before who sort of agreed to let us interview them and to bring them on camera as well. And Lieutenant Patricia Jackson Kelley was one of those. We did an earlier interview with her. If you've been looking at the Facebook pages, you may have seen that already. If you haven't seen it, I do invite you to go back and take a look at that. I think you find that really interesting, and it gives you even a deeper view of sort of who she is and where she comes from. The Villager Awards purpose is to do two things. Number one is that we like to think that we are humanizing who we are, particularly as Black people. One of the things that we had found early on in our focus group research was that we really quite often are we hide or we hidden in our titles, in our roles, in our jobs. And so nobody ever really gets a chance to see our humanity. So our role is to try to bring that humanity forward so that you know who we are. You sort of know what's the essence of who we are. You know, what's our families like? Who are we like as human beings, as people, so that we don't get lost and get lost in the titles or get lost in the role. And then when we do that, we lose our values to our communities who really need us very much. And so we try to bring that forward, to bring that to light. And so you get to hear that during our awards presentations, which makes us a little bit different. The other thing we try to do is to build community. And we build community by introducing people to each other who sometimes have never even met each other, heard each other's stories. And when they do that, they become close. They become a village, we call it. They become a village. And they know each other really, hopefully, many of them for the rest of their lives. And they become available to the community as well. So having said that, I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time. At the very end of this session, you'll get to hear a little bit more about who we are in Afro Global and who we are as a Village Project. But for now, I really want to introduce to you our guest today. I want you to sort of hear her voice. We want you to hear her story in her own words. I will be asking her some leading questions, but some of the questions I'll just let her run away with on her own. So let me sort of bring her front and center here for you. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley. Okay, let me have you just sort of say hello to the audience first so I can get you on camera.
Hello, and thank everyone for joining us today.
Very good. Now, Colonel Kelley, let me call you Patricia, if that's okay with you.
Okay, please do.
Okay, I'm going to start out with that. Now, I remember when we did the very first interview with you, we started out talking about you and a little about your childhood and where you grew up. And we went back, we sort of looked up a lot of that. And most exciting, you had a very interesting childhood. And I really want you to, if you will, just bring us into that world one more time. Just bring us into the world of you. We're going to start, say, with the first 10 years of your life. We'll go that way. If you can sort of tell us about that.
The first 10 years of my life, basically, I spent with my grandparents in North Carolina. My mom, at that time, was a single parent, and it was just my sister and I at that time. And she left my sister with a cousin of ours and me with my grandparents. My grandparents were the parents of my dad. So my dad was in the military at the time, and my grandparents was more or less, they kind of spoiled me a lot because they were older and I was like another child in the family. So they had a country store and I used to wait, more or less assist them with doing the change for the people and taking care of their groceries and everything. So I learned to count at a very early age, and I learned interacting with individuals at a very early age. I also learned what I didn't know at that time, discrimination at a very early age, because the area that I lived in was all Black, and about 6 miles away from that was all white. And the white people would come into the store and they would purchase things from us. And one of the things that I really resented, even at that age, was they always called my grandmother by her first name. Her name was Louise. And we were always taught if it was anyone older than you, you need to call them Miss or Mrs., So I learned to kind of build up a resentment about that. And my grandfather was kind of the person that would more or less bend over backwards to please them. So that was something that I resented as well.
Let me ask you a question about that, Patricia. So, and I always like to ask people about this because how we see the world as children and how we see the world as adults, it's often two different things, sometimes 3 or 4 different things, really, when you think about it. But as a child, you mentioned your experience with what we now know to be discrimination. As a child, if you could think back on that, how did you perceive that as a child? Because that's before we even knew what discrimination was.
You kind of broke up when you asked the last part. I didn't understand your question.
Okay, sorry. How did you perceive that as a child? Because we didn't know we didn't know what discrimination was for a while, I don't think.
Right. How did I perceive it as a child? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess growing up, I really, I still had the tenacity and the willpower to promote being Black, because I was one of the ones that sat at the counter, at the 5 and 10 cent store, Woolworth, we had in the town. So I've always been one that promoted heritage as far as being Black. So I think it was part of my upbringing that really prompted me to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I think what we hear a lot in today's world, we hear the term woke. This is you're always awake. You're always awake and woke, as they say today. Okay. So tell me, as you got past those 10 years, let's go to the next part. Let's go to the next 10 years.
Okay, the next 10 years, I spent a lot of time between New York and North Carolina because my mom had remarried at that time. And she was able to, I guess, more or less care for us with my stepfather being in the picture, having someone to babysit. So I went back to North Carolina when I graduated from high school. I did my high school in North Carolina, and I graduated at the age of 15 because I skipped a grade when I was in elementary school. I think that as I got older, even though I was at an all Black school, I graduated from an all Black school, but as I got older, in between the trips from New York, I think I got more socialization with people of other ethnic background because where we lived, it was a mixed neighborhood. So we got to know a lot of people, like Lou Alcindor's parents, who he's Kareem Jewel now, but he was Lou Alcindor to us. His parents lived in the same building that we lived in, and we just got to know a lot of different people during that time. So my focus kind of changed I was less radical, let's put it that way.
Okay, very good. I want to know if our audience has any questions for you as well out here before I go to the next stage here. You're awfully quiet. Now, one thing I do know about just some of the members that are out here on the screen right now in our audience is I think we all sort of came along around the same time as you did. That I know for a fact. So I'm going to bring them in as we go along here. I'm going to let you keep talking, then I'm going to bring some of them in to sort of share some of those common threads. I noticed that you said you had grown up in what we would call the city, where I come from. And some of us grew up more in the country and some grew up sort of in between, but the timelines were the same. So we'll be looking to sort of look into that a little bit deeper, but let's go on to the next 10 years. We're going decade by decade here as close as we can.
Okay, as I graduated from high school, I had a scholarship to go to Bennett College. And I turned it down because I didn't want to go to an all-girls school. Later years, I found out that AT&T was right across the street from Bennett. So there were plenty of guys there, but it was too late. And I came to New York. I started living in New York on a full-time basis at that time. And I started working at Bellevue Hospital in the psychiatric unit. Well, I guess I can tell it now, but it was required that you be 18 in order to work in psych. And I graduated as I said, at 15. By this time, I had turned 17, but through a little finagling, I got to work in psych. I started out as a nurse's aide. Then I went to LVN school. And from there, I went to RN school. But those years I spent working in psychiatry at Bellevue Hospital, well, I think that was one of the most interesting times of my life. After I left Bellevue, I worked at an extended care facility and eventually became the in-service director at that facility.
You were very, very young. When you mentioned that, I'm thinking 17 working in a psych facility, in a busy psych facility, as I recall,
Very
about Bellevue. That had to have been quite an experience. Um,
was.
Tell me,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that as far as what difference do you think it made, the fact that you were younger? Do you think that that was to your advantage or to your disadvantage? What do you think about that?
I think it was a good experience for me because being younger, the people, again, I was spoiled because the older people that worked there, they kind of babied me and kind of protected me from situations that I was naive about. So my mom worked there. My mom retired from there after 37 years. She was a nurse today. And and they loved her dearly. So they kind of embraced me as a result of my mom and my aunt. One of my aunts worked there and my godfather worked there. So
Wow, that is really that's really amazing. I think in chatting to a number of people in our generations who went into nursing or anything, any work environment at that point, we all seem to have started much younger than what I see people starting today. I really do. I hear stories of having a lot more responsibility at a very much younger age. So I think you definitely are speaking to that now as you're telling us your story. So let's go on to what's next. The next 10 years, we've gone all the way through now up to we're crawling into the 20s now. Let's do that next 10 years.
next 10 years, well, I think probably at the age of 25 is when I got married for the first time. And I, I, I'm trying to think of the significance of that lasted for a few years, for 13 years. And then as a result of that, I decided that I had the need to leave New York because my ex-husband was the kind of clinging type. So I wanted to get away and I could not afford to because I had my son was 8 years old at the time and I could not afford a move, but I was in the Navy Reserves. So I had an associate degree, but you needed a bachelor's in order to be an officer. And I was in school at the time at Hunter College for my bachelor's. So once I received my bachelor's, I went to the commanding officer and I told him that I was ready to be an officer. And he said, we don't have any female billets in this unit. So I went to the Army and applied for the Army Reserves, and they lost my paperwork, I found out when I called them later, a month later. So I went to the Air Force to go in the Air Force Reserve, and the recruiter, this fine brother, talked me into going on active duty. So at the age of 36, I uprooted and went on active duty in the Air Force. I was stationed, and it was quite a harrowing experience because I was 36 years old and all the other nurses were much younger than I was. And I was the only Black nurse on my unit. And I had to leave my son because you had to have house emotional. So I finally got my son and we got settled. And as soon as we got settled, I got orders to go overseas to Loggers Field, Azores. Mm-hmm. And had to leave my son again. So he stayed with his dad in between his dad and my mom, 15 months old, and came back to George Air Force Base, which is now close, but that's located up near Hesperia, North Carolina, California. Those of you who know about California. So once I got to Georgia Air Force Base, I'll never forget the first day I arrived. I never thought it would snow in California. So I said, I can't do this. So that's when I decided to come off active duty, and I went into the reserves. And I finished up the rest of my time. And so I did a total of 26 years, and I retired in 2003.
Excellent. My goodness gracious. So for those of you who, I know we have some people in the audience there who are military and who know a little bit about it, but some people are not. So I want to just clarify a couple of things. When you mentioned billet, that you were referring to a place to stay, basically, is what she's saying. They had no place for women, basically, to stay at that time. It's really what we're talking about. And then also, Patricia, I heard you mention that you were 36 years old when you first went into the active duty military. It sounds like that is very unusual. Where we see that most often is when we're in wartime. Of course, you know, when we're in the middle of war, everything's on the table at that point. But it's seldom to see that in peacetime. So you were a trailblazer for sure, having done that. So we've sort of scooted over now between the second and the third decade. So the second sort of, it looks like you're busy decades. There was the end of that second decade and moving into that third decade. That seems to have been the busy one there. Am I right?
Well, at the and I did not want to do that. So I left the VA after about 18 months. And one of my friends who worked there, my sorority sister, who's passed on, Ruby Laster, called me and told me that they had an opening for a nurse manager position. So I applied for it and I got it. So I went back to the VA and I did nurse manager for about 2 years. And the new program, Women's Veteran Coordinator, came up and I applied for that. And there was 25 applicants and I got the job. So I did that for 10 years and I retired from the VA hospital and the military in both at the same time, 2003.
My goodness gracious. Yes, you were right on the cusp of history every time. That somebody was saying that sometimes it seems as if we just end up where we're supposed to be, not even knowing what that is just yet. And I wanted to use that as sort of a lead into, because I know what came after that. And I wanted to just sort of add something to that. I came along during a time, as I had shared with Patricia earlier, when the notion of women veteran patients at the VA was something that I had never heard of. And I started my career working in the VA. And for years, I never had a woman patient. I remember when I finally started to see one, I may see one here or one there. I remember even on the military side of me, when I was at Perk Army Medical Center, I shared with her, all the time that I was there, I never had a female patient. And it never dawned on me, where are they? Never dawned on me to even ask that question. And so with that lead in, tell us a little bit about you now and your role with the Women Veteran Coordinator.
Well, I think it was developed at the time when I was working on the unit. It was a 40-bed substance abuse unit. And most of the time there was like 1 or 2 women, at the most 3 at one time. And the women were subject to harassment by the male patients. So I found myself kind of protecting them. Like I developed policies so that they would be near the nurses station, you know, the sleeping area be near the nurses station, and different things that they would have different guidelines so that they could spend some time together alone. And when the job came along for the Women's Veteran Coordinator, I just thought it was perfect for me because I had already had some experience dealing with the women veterans. And so that was to me, it was a perfect job until until a manager came along that we didn't see eye to eye. So that's when I said it's retirement time. So I did it for 10 years though.
Can you tell us?
It was there was no women's clinic when I started. And the mammography unit, they had to go, and there was a little space in the hallway. They would go there and change to get their mammogram. And the area was covered with those real thick plastic shower curtains.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the area was covered with. But prior to my leaving, we had a state-of-the-art mammography unit. We had a women's clinic, and we had dedicated services for women's veterans that were located in the women's clinic. We were the first ones that, when you hear the term that all your services are done in one place,
Mm-hmm.
we created that through the Women's Veteran Program.
Wow, that is really something. It's hard to imagine, and we're not talking. What year when was that? Because that wasn't that terribly long ago.
1991 was
Mm-hmm.
when they started the program.
Mm-hmm. And women have been around in the military decades before then, long time, and we've been accumulating veterans a long time, even before we were recognized as such. So that was really groundbreaking and historic, and it's something that's really a part of our history as well. Not only a part of our history, I think, as Black women, it's a part of our history as nurses, it's a part of our history as veterans as well. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. When we say thank you for your service, it reaches beyond just your service in the military, because it really reaches us into that service with the VA as well. So take us on to the next.
Well,
run out of 10 years.
after retirement, 2003, I was so happy that I was going to retire. I was coming home, and I planned to sit and write my book and just relax and travel and see the world. Well, I have traveled, but I have not relaxed. My life is busier than it was when I was working. I cannot believe the responsibilities that I continue to take on. And this year, I've kind of distanced myself from some of it, but it seems like as soon as I get rid of one, another one come along. So I want to go into a class that tells me how to say no and stick to it.
Oh, don't we all? Okay. So you want to tell us a little bit now. Tell us a little bit about your family. I know you got children, grandchildren.
Okay. I have one son. He lives in Denver, Colorado, and with his wife, and I have 4 grandkids, 1 granddaughter, and 3 grandsons. My granddaughter is currently in college. She got a full scholarship to go to Clemson University in South Carolina. She plays softball. And my oldest grandson, he is enrolled in college out here because he loves California, but he's currently in Colorado because he didn't make plans for his college as he should have. So he's in Colorado. And then the younger 2, one is he's determined that he's going to be a musician, and the other one is he does sports, a lot of sports. So
And as I recall, your son particularly, your son and your daughter-in-law, I know they're both not only bilingual, but I believe your son is trilingual.
Trilingual, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Tell a little bit about that, because we don't see that often.
He speaks, well, he speaks Spanish, Japanese, and I forgot the other language, but he speaks 3 different languages. And he's also very active in the school. He loves coaching, so he coaches baseball and basketball. In fact, he was instrumental in my granddaughter being the champion that she was. She received all kinds of awards, and still is, even at college. So he's very active, very family oriented, very God oriented. So thank you. And he's just a great kid. My
Wonderful.
kid. He
Yeah.
just turned 48 in January. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now let me
Mm.
skip over just a little bit before I open this up to some questions from the audience and comments from the audience as well. But let's go through. Let's talk about, I know you're active in so many organizations until I won't begin to capture all of them. But I know that there are a few of them that I'm aware of. I'm aware of your role with the Foundation for Women Warriors, your role with Chi Phi Sorority Incorporated, your role with the American Legion, and your role, of course, with NABMW, the National Association for Black Military Women. Tell us just a little bit about this and what they mean to you.
Okay. Well, I think my regional director's on, so I'll start with Chi Phi.
All right.
Okay. I became involved in with Chi Phi 25 years ago. I think it was 25. And I chose to become involved because one of my friends kind of suggested that I can come on. Her name was Connie Tripp. She's since passed away, but we were very, very involved with the different things that were going on. In fact, I think we did more things in the community than we do now for some reason. And we just had a bond that you would not believe. It was a true sisterhood, and she was military as well. We were stationed at the same place, the 349th General Hospital. And so we did things in the military and the sorority. So we did a lot together. As far as the National Association of Black Military Women, I started out as a member, and then before I knew it, I was the vice president, and now I am the president. So, and hopefully I'll be able to relinquish that title very soon. I'm also, I got involved with my husband. He is a retired postal supervisor. So I started going to the meetings with him, and he said, well, why don't you join the auxiliary? I said, well, okay, to support him, because we were dating at the time. So, I had to impress him. So I joined the auxiliary. And before I knew it, I was the vice president in the auxiliary. So now I am the president. I am the national president. I am the state president, and I'm the local president for the National Association of Postal Supervisors. And I'm a commissioner for the County of Los Angeles Military and Veterans Affairs, 2nd District. It used to be Mark Ritter Thomas, those of us from California, but now Holly Mitchell is the new supervisor. So I'm a life member of the Disabled Veterans and a few other organizations, but those are the ones that I'm primarily active in.
Yeah, let us not leave out the American Legion.
Oh yeah,
Jackie
okay.
Robinson.
I'm currently the post commander for Jackie Robinson Post, American Legion, and I've held practically all of the offices within the Legion, local, except the department commander. That's the only office that I have not held. Well, and I don't care to.
I wanted to say yeah.
No.
So, Patricia, I'm going to change the view here for just a minute, and I'm going to see if I cannot bring in our some of our audience members out there who came in early. Let's sort of bring some of them in here for you, so we can start taking a look at some of them. And I know some of them have their names up, but the cameras are not pointed at them. But we know you're there. So we're gonna be calling on those of you that have switched over to panel view. And I'm gonna start with Sheila Grumback, and I'm gonna start with her for a number of reasons. Number one, I wanted to start with her because she like I think I too am ex-military, but she too knows that military life and that transitioning over from military, what it's like to be busy on two sides of yourself, busy on the military side, busy on the civilian side, busy on the professional side as a nurse as well. She knows all of those. And you mentioned before, she is the regional director, Southwest Regional Director for Chi Eta Phi Sorority. And for those of you who don't know Chi Eta Phi Sorority, she can probably tell you a little bit about that as well. So Sheila, can you unmute yourself there and have something to say to us here?
Good evening. Good evening. There is so much that you do, especially during Black History Month, to acknowledge someone so notable as our Patricia Jackson Kelley. She is quite notable and distinguished. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to just acknowledge what you're doing and say just a little bit about Chi Eta Phi. I would show my picture normally, as most of you know, yes. But I'm just leaving work, so I'm in the car right now.
No problem. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, but yeah, Chi Eta Phi Sorority Incorporated is essentially an organization of professional registered nurses. It was founded in 1932. And we do service for humanity, going out in the community and providing health prevention, health promotion. And we have 8 chapters in the Southwest region, including Hawaii and Nevada. And we have 5 chapters in California, and my chapter is in Colorado. And so even during COVID, we have been active in the community and providing that background, the support that is needed, information on COVID, the vaccinations, and just providing a true source of information to the community. And I will say that we still continue with our scholarship initiatives as well for those who are nursing students going to be registered nurses. So we provide that support and leadership development. And I actually do that professionally as I travel around the country and provide leadership development and go into different organizations. And I will say that I really enjoyed myself from 2015 to probably 2018, traveling in California at different organizations. So it was quite a pleasure getting to see face-to-face our members of our organization. But we do have regional conferences, and we have one coming up in March with our Oakland chapter hosting that. And, you know, I got a chance to come out to one of the chapter's ceremonies where we had Maxine Waters as one of the presenters, and of course, a notable legislator, and acknowledging our president of the American Nurses Association, who is also came up in our sorority. So it was absolutely fabulous. And of course, getting a chance to see Patricia Jackson Kelley during that time was excellent. But when I joined in 2007, she was one of the people that I met right away and made quite an impression on me. And I'm just amazed at her accomplishments and what she's been able to do throughout her life. And so we applaud her, and we thank you for the villagers for acknowledging her accomplishments and contributions. I think you're muted, Gloria.
Let me just go down the line here a little bit. I want to say thank you so much for those comments, Sheila. I will put some contact information in our chat box as well, so that those people who are watching us here on Zoom can have that information. And also those of you who may be watching us on Facebook and who may also be watching when we come back to our YouTube. All of these will eventually go to YouTube as well, so that you'll sort of know what Chi Eta Phi sorority is about as well. So thank you very much for those comments. Let me just go down the line here, and any comments you'd like to have, anybody, I'm going to call on you anyway, so just sort of think about it. And the next one I have on my list here, I'm going down my list here, so who knows what might be next. But according to my list, I have Barbara Knapper. And Barbara Knapper, I have known for many, many years. She, as I mentioned before, is a 2014 Villager Award recipient, and we'll have to come back to her as well. So she's another one, that we have to interview and have her story there as well. But she too is a member of Chi Eta Phi Sorority Incorporated. Now, not that everybody on here is a member of Chi Eta Phi, but if you're a nurse, you probably should be. But anyway, she's also the president of one of our local chapters here in Long Beach, California, Chi Eta chapter. But I want her to just say hello to Patricia and just tell us a little bit about yourself here. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, my dear friend, Patricia Jackson Kelley, and my ally as we came together in 2014. My story is I have no military background, but my journey into Chi Eta Phi has been very interesting because I was very active in the community with two other organizations that I was affiliated with, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and the Hess Foundation, which works with younger folk. And I was at Mount San Antonio College. And as I retired in 2003 at Mount San Antonio College, I really got busy with my consulting business, and I was traveling around the state of California in for numerous grants and so forth. And that is where I met Sarah Gloria Willingham. And I was asked early on from one of my sisters who is Delta and Chi Eta Phi, if I would be their keynote speaker for the regional conference in Long Beach. I don't remember what year that was. And so I said that I would. I remember that Levine Knight was the regional director at that time. And I spoke. And interestingly enough, they thought I was a member of Chi Eta chapter in Long Beach, and Chi Eta chapter thought I was a member at Delta, and someone else thought that I was a member at Mu Chi. So finally, Miss Gloria Willingham Torre came to me and said, listen, are you a member of Chi Eta Phi? And I said, no. And she got me. So that's how I got to be a member of Chi Eta Phi. And my story is long, but I'm from Texas. And as I've been telling people all week, I grew up in Texas and I never saw a snowflake, let alone the snow that they have been enduring over the past week. But that I met Patricia Jackson Kelley when we were Villager Award recipients, and we've been sort of together ever since.
Yes. That's how it goes in the village, everybody. So I'm gonna run down my list a little bit here because I know we're getting close on the time. Linda Burks, I don't think I know who you are. I do see your name here and it sounds so familiar. I don't see your face, but if you can unmute yourself and just have a couple comments, we sure would appreciate it. Can you unmute?
Okay. Hi, Linda Burks. I'm coming from the Detroit chapter of Chi Eta Phi. Also national historian for the Middle West region. And I was driving.
Okay, we understand. We're just so glad you're here.
Oh, yes, I am also. And I was so amazed when Colonel Patricia, when you were talking about the things that was in the military, I'm thinking that you meant something long ago, not realizing. I said, oh, that is awesome, Sharon. I would have never thought that we were that behind as far as providing services to women. So I was really amazed. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thank you. And Marie, can you unmute and have a word to say to us as well there?
Wait a minute. Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can. And thank you. I've seen you since the beginning.
Yeah, I'm Marie Bright, and Pat Kelley is my SOAR from Delta chapter. And so I only met her once she joined the Delta chapter. And so she's been a very good friend. So I congratulate her to having achieved all that she has done, and want her to continue doing the good work.
Excellent, excellent,
Mhm.
excellent. This is just really great.
Bright.
Okay, let me see. Let me move on down to Patricia Mead, and somebody needs to mute, sounds like. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think Maria, it might be you. There you go. Patricia, can you unmute and say something to us, please?
How much?
$2.76.
Okay.
Kind of on the conference.
Okay, Marie. Oh, there you go. You got it. You got it now. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Batims, am I pronouncing your name right? Batims.
Oh, Batima.
Batima.
Yes. And hey, Patricia.
Hi, Fatima.
Oh,
Oh my
girl.
God.
I know I just got in, and because I make arrangements for all these wonderful Zoom informationals, and then I have nowhere to keep which one is which. And I just sat down at my computer. So I'm sorry I missed your talk, but I know some of what you've done. I'm a veteran, and Patricia and I go way back. I look at her as one of my mentors. I'm not part of any sorority. I miss that, going to one of these other kind of colleges, because I am an educated knucklehead, but I didn't do the sorority thing. And I'm just sorry that I missed some of the talk. And just as a veteran, a female veteran, I can say that Patricia was very important at the time that I came through the VA, because I don't know what was going on before 25 or 26 or 27 years ago, but they did have a women's clinic, and I felt very supported by the way that I came through to get myself some help. So thanks to Patricia, along with her trying to get me into stick with the American Legion folks. We lost out one of them, one of our posts in the community. So I don't know. It's hard to get folks that look like us to really stick and stay on some things, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you, ladies, for putting this on and doing the good works that I'm sure all of you are part of. And thank you, Patricia, for being a friend of mine. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those comments. That's really much appreciated. And let me tell you, you didn't miss a thing, because we do record these sessions. The link will be coming out so that you'll have a chance to see it. It'll be posted all over Facebook, YouTube. There'll be many opportunities. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley will get a copy as well, so she can distribute it all over the world if she wants to.
Oh, okay.
So
and I forgot to put my face to my voice. I mean, I got a new computer, and I'm telling you, technology is not my cup of tea.
Well, we heard you, that's all. And we see you now. So we're
yeah.
welcome and welcome.
Yes,
You'll get a chance to see it again now.
Oh,
so
that's wonderful.
I'm going to have to move along, because we are going to have to finish here with this. I thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate your being here. I appreciate Patricia, Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson Kelley. Her story goes so deep, so much deeper than what we have just heard. This is like a tip on the iceberg, as many of you know. And as I mentioned, we actually did a previous interview with her that was not a go live interview. It's a video interview, which will be also posted so that you can see those as well, because it gets even deeper than where we are now. As I mentioned at the beginning, with the Village Projects, we really try hard to bring these kinds of stories to the forefront, because quite often people don't get to hear those stories, and especially not from the person who's having the lived experience. And so that's one of the things that we were trying to do, one of the things that we're happy that we're able to do, and we will continue to do that. We started our series called 28 Days, 28 Stories. And we are well past 28 stories now, that's for sure. And so that was to be a part of Black History Month. And what we decided to do, because we have so many rich stories out there, we're going to be doing this all year long. And so whatever the year, whatever the month is, whatever the week is, we feel that we can put something in there, that's for sure. So as we move past Black History Month, which will be fairly soon now, we'll be moving into Women's History Month, and we'll be bringing in a lot of people here for you to meet too and to hear their stories. Their stories are different, but their stories are connected. And as we hear more of those stories, we get to see ourselves as a whole and as connected people. And we'll be able to connect ourselves to the rest of the world in the process. So I just want to thank you very much for that. Patricia, I'm going to let you have the last word, if you will, and then we will be prepared to close out here and move forward. Thank you.
I want to thank those of you who took the time to join us today. I realized that the last presentation didn't go that well, so because of technology, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, as Dr. Willingham said, because my book will be more in depth as to the real deal. Thank you. Stay tuned.
Thank you all very much. And I hope that you have a very good afternoon. And I will see you next time. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the sharing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Mhm.